All right. Now, I want to save that for last. Let's go first. Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens. How you doing, Jimmy? How you doing, Funky Lions fan? Big Al. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. The Chiefs, the Ravens. Spread is Ravens favored at home, -3.5 for the AFC Championship Game. We have the MVP Lamar Jackson taking on Super Bowl MVP and reigning MVP Patrick Mahomes. We have everyone's favorite prince of the NFL, Patrick, taking on the most electrifying man in the NFL today, Lamar Jackson. Quick stat for you. The Ravens are 6-0 ATS and 6-0 straight up when favored by 4 points or less this season. They have covered 6 out of 6 games. And another funky stat that I want to throw out there that absolutely means nothing, but I just thought it was funny, is that every team that beat Josh Allen in the playoffs in his history of playing in the playoffs has lost the following week. That includes the Chiefs 2 other times. They lost to the Bucs following the AFC Championship win over Josh Allen, and they lost to the Bengals in the AFC Championship after beating Josh Allen in the divisional round. So, kind of a funny stat, but it's actually true. It's kind of like the Kirk Cousins curse. If you don't know that one, look it up. Injuries. Breaking down the injuries for both sides. For Kansas City, Willie Gay and Mike Edwards both left last week. Keep an eye out on them and their ability to play this game. Willie Gay is important to this defense as one of the starting linebackers and a tandem with Nick Bolton, but he's also very important as their designated spy defender when they want to track Lamar Jackson and the run game specifically and him scrambling. And then Mike Edwards is their kind of like roaming free safety that plays the deep part of the field. So without him, that kind of puts them in a difficult position because they've already had injuries at the safety position and they have to go a layer deeper to Deion Bush, who's a veteran safety name that used to play for Chicago, mostly like a special teams player. He's a serviceable safety, but he's definitely not somebody that you want to be playing in the biggest game of the year. So watch out for those two. Joe Thuney is the big one. Joe Thuney is expected to not play. It's unlikely that he'll play in the AFC Championship against Baltimore. He is an all-pro caliber guard. He has been ever since being drafted by New England pretty much. Pro Bowl, all-pro level player. And Nick Allegretti is the replacement. He's a center guard hybrid type of player. Solid player. Not a bad player, not a bad replacement. But it is a downgrade. I would say especially to the run blocking. I think Joe Thuney is an excellent pass blocker, and that's probably his strength. But I think that where you would see the biggest decline in the Chiefs is those pin and pull plays and the power running concepts where Joe Thuney is leading the way. That's been very successful the last couple of weeks. So watch out for that. If Thuney is out, that will obviously be a huge loss, especially against somebody like Matabuke, if that's how you actually say his name. I've said it wrong a few hundred times. He's been a 12-sack specialist for the Ravens this year and arguably their best pure pass rusher. If he's matched up on Allegretti, that might be a bit of a mismatch there. So watch out for that. Baltimore. Marlon Humphrey did not play last week, but it did not really matter. They took care of business. They handled Nico Collins, and it wasn't a huge factor. Ronald Darby actually played extremely well in that game as his replacement. But Marlon Humphrey definitely matters to this game. Why? Because I think there's one good receiver on the Chiefs. And if you're able to significantly hinder his production, Rashee Rice, then you're able to handle the Chiefs' offense at a greater rate. Mark Andrews might also come back for this game, but it should be in limited fashion as maybe a red zone or third down specialist. I still expect Isaiah Likely to play a heavy role, but those are the injuries to look out for. In terms of weather, there could be a 62% chance of light rain, so some drizzle out there, nothing too impactful. But again, I said that last week with the Niners and the Packers, and it completely messed my pick up. Because I completely believe, as we'll get to the Niners game later, if that game is shining, that game is sunny, Brock Purdy plays a lot differently. That being said, Kansas City, Baltimore, there might be some light rain. Neither quarterback is extremely affected by it, but throughout the history of watching those two quarterbacks, I'd say Mahomes is less affected by it than Lamar. Although I will say that Mahomes doesn't usually play in rain. He usually plays in cold or snow, but I've never really seen him play that much in rain. So could be a factor, but not too big of a factor as expected. All right, so let's start with the matchups on offense and defense. Let's go Baltimore's offense versus Kansas City's defense. I do have notes this week, and I do want to bring up some notes, but I will try to make it as authentic and flow as well as possible. Starting with what happened last week to Baltimore's offense. We saw early in the game that Houston was really able to stifle and get after Lamar Jackson and hold them in check in the first half. And the score was 10-10 at halftime. Big reason for that is that DeMeco Ryans blitzed at a historic rate, and especially for DeMeco Ryans' defense. 72% of plays he sent the blitz. That is the highest career percentage that Lamar Jackson has ever faced against the blitz in a single game or half. 72%. And the blitz was heavily effective for the Texans early in the game. But the adjustments is where the game was won for the Ravens on offense and a little bit on defense, but mostly offense. So the game was really close in the first half because the Texans played great defense and the Ravens could not have an answer for zero blitzes or the blitzing schemes of DeMeco Ryans, overloading the protection and forcing Lamar to get rid of the ball and not allowing him to dance around, create magic time behind the line of scrimmage and do his damage, right? And the goal for that is to speed up Lamar Jackson, to not allow him any escape routes, to get outside, to run, to scramble. He's forced to throw the ball if you blitz him and cover all the gaps. And he's also forced to find a receiver quickly. So he's forced to use his mind to go to the right place with the right timing. And he's also being forced for his receivers to get open. And it's less on Lamar and more on the players around Lamar, which is how you want to try to beat an elite player, is you want to put more pressure on the players around them than the player themselves. That's what I always say about Tom Brady. It's like, like when Tom Brady was playing, you want to beat everyone else. You don't want to beat Tom Brady or else you're going to lose. So that's what happened with the Texans. And the Texans were able to really have a good plan early. But then after halftime, the Ravens came out. Todd Monken made the adjustments. They were getting the ball out in like 2.2 seconds, getting the ball out quick, getting the ball out fast in a flash. And they were able to just distribute the ball. Lamar looked very composed. He looked like he had answers to all the tests and all the questions. And he just went out and he did whatever he wanted from a passing standpoint. It made the Texans kind of adjust their game plan, play more softer. The Ravens were able to run the ball on the Texans in the second half, possess the ball in the second half, and really do whatever they wanted from a run or pass standpoint. And everything just opened up, and the floodgates opened up because the Texans defense got tired from, playing that style, the aggressive style, and their offense was doing nothing. So their offense was not helping them at all by possessing the ball and keeping that defense on the sidelines. Now, in counteract to that, the Chiefs' defense against Josh Allen played very much the opposite, especially in the first half. They played very soft. And you may have noticed that the Bills had like a really low yards per attempt. And that's been used to kind of like justify Josh Allen for being a choker or something. But it's just the correct way that the Bills had to play that game in order to move the football. One, the Bills don't have the greatest receivers. As much as people will say, tell you that they do, they don't. And secondly, the Chiefs played pretty much too deep and forced everything underneath. And they kind of forced the Bills to have long, sustained drives and to take a lot of the underneath passes. So Allen had a lot of completions, but not a lot of yards per attempt. And that was because he was throwing the ball at the line of scrimmage a lot on a lot of bubble screens and quick passing concepts. The Chiefs played a lot of soft coverage on first and second down, and then sometimes on third down, Spags would switch it up, try to force a blitz, which would force the ball out early, and maybe a high leverage play where Allen would rather complete it, scramble, make a play, or just get off the field and force a punt, right? And this is the way that I think the Chiefs are going to play on defense against the Ravens. I think that they're going to play a high leverage style where they're going to count on the number one matchup advantage that they have in the game, which is their corners against the Ravens receivers. I think Spags is going to go into the game saying, if our corners are beat by Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman, so be it. That is the only way we have a chance to win this game. So what they're going to do, I think they're going to play a lot of man coverage, press coverage. I think they're going to blitz a lot. And I think that they're going to have to stack the box against the run. Because if you've noticed, the Chiefs are not very good against the run. The Bills ran all over them last game. And it was not until really the fourth quarter where they were able to adjust and properly stop it. The Ravens are one of the best running teams in football, whether that's Lamar running the ball or their run game. It's a lot like the Bills. Now, the Bills are more of a zone running team, while the Ravens are more of a power man blocking type of team. I think that the Ravens will be able to run with Gus or Justice Hill in this game. Hill would project closer to a James Cook type of running back, so there's something to think about there. He also got more work against the Texans last week. If you're looking at props for running backs, maybe Justice Hill would be your guy. But the power running would often lead you to believe that Gus Edwards would also be viable to put up some damage in this game. Now, the one thing that I find tricky for the Chiefs is, the Ravens kind of proved last week in the second half that if Spags is aggressively blitzing a lot and playing a lot of man, that Lamar and the Ravens, and most importantly, Todd Monken, kind of had answers to that equation against the Texans. But I think what people are properly not putting into perspective is that the Chiefs have better cornerback personnel. So you might be able to replicate the game plan with better coverage on the back end if you're the Chiefs. And I think that's the best way you can count on getting to Lamar in those passing situations. I don't think what they should do is play soft, allow the Ravens to run the ball and use all their RPOs, which they've become very good at, to move the football. Because I've seen the Ravens really, easily move the ball with short passing, quick RPO concepts to like Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers, screens, and then running the ball against too high. I just don't think that's a good way to go about it. I think against the Ravens this week, for the Chiefs specifically, if the Chiefs were better against the run, I would maybe say, okay, you can play a little bit more like coverage based, but I think their best approach is going to be aggressively trying to take the run away and forcing our corners to play a little bit on islands so that we can get stops. I think if they play too conservative, they're going to fall into the trap of putting too much pressure on their offense to having to move the ball and score points. So that's the way I see that going. I think that the Buffalo game plan, where running the ball, passing the ball short and quick, RPOs, that is something Baltimore's comfortable with. That's something Baltimore can really try to do and try to accomplish, just as Buffalo did. And something interesting to take into account here is that the Chiefs defense did play 75 plays against the Buffalo Bills last week. The Ravens defense is rested, is ready to go. They did not play a lot. I mean, the Texans didn't even get into the red zone last week. So the Ravens defense is very much more rested. The Chiefs defense had to play a lot of time of possession, a lot of plays, a lot of snaps, and therefore a couple of their players got hurt. I think that the Ravens will easily be able to stay out of third and longs, and I think that they'll be able to run the ball effectively, which is going to allow them to stay out of those like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8 type of situations, because I don't know if I have enough faith in the Chiefs to be able to slow down the Ravens running game. One area where the Ravens can specifically attack is the Ravens in the shotgun. They have had the second most runs out of shotgun this year, 343 carries, averaging 5.56 yards per carry. The Chiefs are allowing over 5 yards per carry to shotgun runs this year. So that is an area where they could really struggle, especially the lowest stuff rate in the league against runs out of the shotgun. So that's an area to look out for. I would expect McDuffie to largely take Zay Flowers. I would also expect L'Jarius Sneed to take rather Rashad Bateman or Odell in a lot of these passing situations, and then Watson will be left with the other. But I assume Spags going to blitz a lot. I just don't know if it's always going to work. I think there'll be a couple of good stops here and there, but I don't think it's going to be consistent. I think the Ravens are going to put up around 20 to 27, 28 points in the game. And I think it's going to be up for the Chiefs offense to be able to answer that, and hopefully it's lower. If it's lower 20s, I think the Chiefs got a chance here to pull the upset off. If it's around 27, 28, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Chiefs to win this game. Because objectively, the Ravens have been the better team all year, and the Ravens on paper are the better team. Breaking down the Baltimore defense against Kansas City offense, this is really where I'm not so sure. I don't really know what's going to happen on this side of the ball so much. The total is 44.5, so it's expected to be closer to a defensive game than an offensive game. I also don't know. I think one of the questions is, like, how much better is the Chiefs offense this year? Like, how much are they trending upward based on the last couple of games, right? They've played the Bengals, who sucked, but they looked good, and they kicked a lot of field goals. They played the Dolphins, who were really injured and played a very unique style of defense, which was heavily blitzing Mahomes, which didn't really work that well. And then in the divisional round, they played a very beat-up Buffalo defense that had A.J. Klein on it, and they just basically picked on a couple of the players that were weaknesses for that unit. The surprising element that I think Kansas City was able to take advantage of that I didn't project correctly was Kansas City was able to run the ball extremely effectively against Buffalo. That's an area I thought Buffalo would do a better job of defending, and they didn't. So that I have to tip my hat and say I was wrong about that. That's probably the area where Kansas City had the most success that I wasn't expecting. Me seeing Kelsey have a good game against A.J. Klein wasn't all that surprising. But going to this, I think this game will be decided by, Baltimore's ability, or this side of the ball will be decided by the ability for the Ravens to disrupt the rhythm of the Chiefs offense, the timing of the Chiefs offense. And I think that all starts with coverage and coverage looks, making Mahomes kind of, hold the ball for a split second and enabling pressure to at least get in his face and make a play. The Texans were really simply disrupted on offense by the crowd noise. That was a huge factor in that game. And that's why, to me, the Texans looked very immature, very young, not ready for the moment. It just felt like the Chiefs should be able to handle this better, given that they have Mahomes, Andy Reid, a veteran offense, a veteran offensive line. This, they're not the Texans, where the Texans have a couple glaring weaknesses on the offensive line and a quarterback that's never really been in that moment before. As much as C.J. Stroud's a great player, it's a lot different. So the Chiefs should be a little bit better at that and not be taking constant false starts or illegal formations or whatever they were doing. Like, there were so many in the first half, especially. I think the key for the Chiefs in this game collectively is getting the lead. If the Chiefs can get the lead, I think that's their best chance to win this game. I know that's kind of cliche, but especially in this game, if you can make the Ravens offense play a little bit more pass heavy than run heavy, which is the Chiefs' weakness on defense, and if you can make, Baltimore on a defensive aspect have to defend the run and the pass equally, then you're going to have a better recipe to beat Baltimore. In the games we've seen Baltimore win and win handily, it's been the ability to, especially against the better teams they've played, start really fast, get ahead, play their creative, wacky coverages in the second half, blitz the opponent from different angles in creative ways, and then on offense kind of be able to run the ball and just do whatever they want in RPOs and that. But if you're forcing Lamar to be a drop back passer, if you're forcing the Ravens to be a run defense, that's the areas where they have a little bit more of a question mark attached to them than I think people realize, which is where we get into, like, are the Ravens this juggernaut all-time unit? I mean, Ultra has told me they're the greatest team of all time. They cannot be stopped. They're the greatest team of the 2020s. He's already crowned them that. They haven't even won the Super Bowl yet. So that's something to consider. That's at least what Ultra thinks. But that's not exactly what I think. I still have, some moments to believe against the best teams in the NFL that there might be some weaknesses that we have not seen yet. And we'll see if Mahomes can bring a couple of those out. But one of the keys here is that the Chiefs quarterback has been sacked exactly 0 times this postseason. So Mahomes has been sacked 0 times this postseason. And that is an important stat because when the Chiefs have been sacked 3 times or more, they're 1-3 in these games this year. So if the Ravens are able to get some pressure, which they've had the most sacks in the NFL this year, 60 sacks on the calendar this season, then, and they actually, I don't believe, have gone a game without sacking an opposing quarterback, then there's a strong chance they win this game. That's also a stat that's just correlated towards the Chiefs are probably falling behind and having to throw a ton, which is why they're getting sacked a lot. But sacks correlate to Mahomes having to hold the ball. So that is what I really mean. Can Mike Macdonald put together a good coverage package where he's taking away the outlets? And really, when you look player for player, man for man, it's hard for me to believe the Chiefs are going to have an effective way of really moving the ball through the air. I mean, this team is like Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, the middle of the Ravens defense should be well equipped to defend Travis Kelce. And if Marlon Humphrey is suited up, I believe he should be well equipped to defend Rashee Rice. If he's not suited up, Brandon Stephens is a good player too. I would give a little bit more of a chance for the Chiefs to be able to throw the ball to Rashee Rice. But like the matchups across the board, the Ravens are a more talented defense than the Chiefs are on offense. So I think for them to balance that out, the Chiefs are going to have to run the ball. And I think Mahomes is just going to have to make some crazy plays. Or Andy Reid is just going to have to be in his bag. Honestly, like, the Ravens are just more talented. Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney, and Oweh, that is also a matchup to look out for against Kansas City's tackles. They've done a really good job of scheming up pressure this year, the Ravens. And I think they're going to find a lot of different ways to attack Mahomes. So the best way to get out of that is by running the ball. Early in this game, you'll know if the Chiefs are going to be in this game or not. If they can run the ball and they can have a nice long drive at the start of the game and they can get a lead. If that happens, the Chiefs got a chance to win this game. If they go behind early, as good as Mahomes has been, I just don't know if they have the type of team right now that they're going to be able to do that against this opponent on the road with that offense and this defense. I think Marlon Humphrey will play. I'm not 100% sure to answer Richard's question. Another couple things that I think you have to keep in mind, you know, when the Ravens give those opportunities when they're trying to stop Kelce and Rice, can MVS once again come through with a couple of big catches? Can Mecole Hardman not fumble the ball and cost his team? Can Watson come up with a couple big catches? That is in large part a big reason they beat the Bills. I mean, their receiving core, especially from the depth standpoint, played a lot better than the Bills' receiving core did. And MVS had one of his best games of the year. He was able to make one-on-one jump catches against the secondary. You know, when it's Ronald Darby against MVS, is MVS going to make those plays or is he going to drop those plays? That's something I don't really know. Overall, though, I think that, you look at this game and it does heavily favor the Ravens. The Ravens should win this game. I'm not going to say the Chiefs have no chance to win this game, but when you look at the areas where Baltimore is really good, pass defense, run offense, those are the areas where the Chiefs are strong on offense and weak on defense. Now, that can be changed with a lead and if the Chiefs can run the ball. Similar to how I discussed the Packers and the Niners last week. Mahomes can be the great equalizer if he's able to create time, buy time, and make some magic happen. And if the Chiefs' corners are able to play really good coverage on the outside and equalize, their inability to stop the run by packing the box and playing really aggressive man coverage and actually stifling those receivers, then they'll have a chance to get some stops, which will give the Chiefs a good chance. One thing to lean on if you're a Chiefs fan, ref stats. This is a real thing. You're getting Sean Smith in this game. Sean Smith is the number one ref for win rate for road teams in the NFL. Taylor Swift team getting this ref? Interesting. With other refs, home teams win 55% of their games. With Smith, they win only 41% of games. With other refs, home teams cover 50% of games, but with Smith, home teams cover 37% of games. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're a Chiefs fan, that's something to say, hey, maybe we got a better chance than I thought. We've got this ref, Sean Smith, who really helps the road teams out. like I said, though, I think that the Ravens will be able to run the ball. I think the Ravens will be able to be well equipped to have the answers for the blitz on offense. And I just don't think the Chiefs offense is good enough right now in this form to go toe-to-toe back and forth with the Ravens offense. I think it's going to have to be a defensive game that's settled in the fourth quarter for the Chiefs to win it. I see the game going 24-16, 24-17 for the Ravens. I think it'll be relatively low scoring. I just have a lot of belief in this Ravens defense. I think they're very well schemed. They're very, very good in the secondary. They've got all the personnel in the middle of the field, as well at cornerback, especially if Marlon Humphrey plays, to slow down the Chiefs' offense. I think the Chiefs have really looked a lot better on offense because they've played weaker opponents. And there are ways for the Chiefs to win, and there are things to look at and pick on to say, the Chiefs can take this one. But the Ravens have been the best team in the AFC all year. They've been the best team in the NFL this year. And that leads me to believe that they'll win and cover this game. And I think 6 or 7 out of 10 times the Ravens probably win this game. The Chiefs fans are counting on the couple of times where early in the game they can control the lead, they can get a turnover, a couple big sacks from their defense that can turn the tide of this game and allow them to control the game from out in front. And that's the best chance for the Chiefs to pull the upset off. But I'll have the Ravens winning, the Ravens covering. This game should be really fun and really great. I don't think this is the Chiefs' year to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I don't think they're as good as last year. I think their defense is the best we've seen it, and that's their best chance to win this game. I just don't have enough belief in all of the games I've seen from Kansas City on offense this year that they have enough on that side of the ball to be able to consistently move and score points against the best defense in the NFL. So I'm going to go with the Ravens to win, the Ravens to cover, and they will advance to the Super Bowl as I believe they would before the playoffs began. Let's move to the NFC Championship games. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section below about this one, and I'll get to those questions as we continue here.